Wait, do I have the source? Eh, um, hmm. Okay, so just doing some publicity to post it at least on my Facebook. Okay, so this is the Masters, mixed graded Masters for, wait, did I label it correctly? Yeah, mixed graded Masters for the 52nd Singapore Bowling Nationals, obviously in Singapore. And it's quite, I wouldn't say, I mean, close to a star-studded feel. Like the names here have been regulars in the bowling scene for quite a while, and we have an ex-national bowler as well. So based on the qualifying schedule, if we look at the tournament schedule, right? Like the earlier phase of the Masters is already gone and passed. Today is the 8th of June, right? So they checked in at 9:30 and they rode off in the morning for the mixed graded Masters. And now they're going into the after lunch, they're going into the top 16 match play. And then yeah, they will crown a champion and then they will have a prize presentation and it will end by 5:30. So there were 8 games that were bowled during the mixed graded masters, and this is the list that you can actually access from the Singapore Bowling Federation website, which is singaporebowling.org.sg. You can find it here under, if you scroll down under the masters results, if you click on this, you get the mixed graded results. So I like it that it is very well updated as compared to the other youth division scores, which wasn't as updated. I don't know whether I can still find the under 16 scores here or not. Yeah, now it's actually updated. Previously, it wasn't as updated as before. So good job by Singapore Bowling there. The staff have updated it. And you can see that the top qualifier here is actually Benjamin Ang. So we can actually see the bowlers here. This is the first game of match play and it's already being completed, right? First game is actually going into the final stages. So I started my stream a little bit too late. So we didn't actually manage to capture the first game. And top leader was actually Benjamin Ang, still in a hard fight against our last qualifier, which is Uncle Rick Tan, a legendary bowler. Let's see. Let's take a look at the progress again. So we have Benjamin Ang right here on the left, and then we have Uncle Rick Tan here on the right. Score-wise, I think Benjamin is in a slight lead, but Uncle Rick is actually still quite close. If you look at their scores, I think Benjamin actually has an open frame. So, but he does have a double. So the scores are still pretty close and tight. So we still have to wait and see. But let's look at the other scores as well. Let's see who progresses. Here, unfortunately, Russell So. Who is Russell So? Sounds like a really familiar name. Yeah, can't put my name on it. But seems like Russell So is being defeated by Muhammad Daniel from Foundation Bowling, one of the best bowlers that I've seen come out from Foundation Bowling, which is Muhammad Daniel bin Rosli. So he is the second seed and favored to win this matchup. Okay, Russell does get that last pair, but he does fall here. So Muhammad Daniel will actually proceed. And then we will look at, I didn't catch the scores for the last two. We can see the scores here. I can't really see the name. I think it's Nikhil versus, I don't know whether Nikhil progressed. So Nikhil was there. We have Nicholas Chong versus, I don't know who's his opponent. Still going on underway. Actually still underway. And can we have lanes 1 and 2? Okay. So the match between Paiman and So Yongping actually has ended. I really don't know who won that. We shall have to wait and see. But here we see Hyron versus Daniel Sui. Daniel Sui bowling one-handed. So Daniel Sui is a very interesting bowler. He can actually bowl both one-handed and two-handed. He has spent some time actually learning about the two-handed technique. But I still think he is more consistent as a one-handed bowler. And Paiman actually wins that match because you can see that Daniel has a lot of splits and is only 110 going into the 10th frame, while Hyron Binawang here, a very legendary and very established bowler, going through at 172 even in the 9th frame, right? So definitely Hyron will be proceeding into the quarterfinals, I guess. No, into the semifinals. Okay. So we still have two matches yet to be decided, and that is... Oh, there are actually matches here as well. Can't really capture Lim Wei Yong versus... can't see her name though. A female bowler. If we were to check here, Lim Wei Yong versus... should be Kimberly Quek. Kimberly does have a 10-pin advantage, right? I think Kimberly has the lead there. And plus the extra... Ooh, her game's pretty good. Yeah, Kimberly here is a pretty good game. Maybe ex-national bowler, I'm not too sure. But good acceleration from the hand. Oh, and Benjamin actually misses the spare. So there can be an upset here. It's actually quite possible for an upset. Uncle Rick Tan can actually upset the first seed Benjamin to knock him out and proceed to the finals, depending on what he does. Because but Uncle Rick does have a split there, I believe, in the previous frame. Oh, what? Did he get a cross bucket strike? Oh, wow. Okay, Lim Yong there actually gets his spare. Gets his spare there. You can see that frame 1. Okay, so Hyron goes into the semifinals. So for people who are like not too familiar with the bowling scene, Benjamin is wearing the Team Syntech Singapore shirt because he is, I believe, the owner or at least the co-owner of Team Syntech. Syntech as a company is actually owned by his father. He is the son, obviously, and I don't know whether he took over the business, but he is. Oh, Ooh, that is not a good shot. So Benjamin actually can throw both one-handed and two-handed. His two-handed technique is quite decent actually. I think it's all self-taught. His one-handed technique is also pretty good. He used to be, from my understanding, I think when he was much younger, he used to be a top spinner in Singapore, and I believe he did enter either into the national youth or the national squad at a very young age as a spinner. But as the spinning technique got phased out, and he actually converted himself to a one-handed hook bowler, was very good at it. And recently, I think in the last like 5 years, 4 to 5 years, he actually learned the two-handed technique by himself. Extremely talented bowler. Like no matter what he does, still manages to make it work. So his two-handed technique there, if we actually can take a look, is not perfect, right? Because he actually keeps his arm swing. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. So he does have this body leaning forward, so it's actually not ideal. So the weight transfer isn't maximized. And at the same time, we go into the slide. So we can't really capture it here. You're right. As his arm goes into the downswing, right, his elbow is actually still bent. So he isn't maximizing his arm length to maximize the ball speed. But despite of that, he actually still has really, really good ball speed for a two-hander because of the amount of how fast he actually moves his last three steps. So he has more than enough ball speed. He doesn't need to like get any further ball speed for the extension of his arm. So bring it back to life. And we can see that scores are still pretty tight. Still very tight. It goes down to the final frame. Against Tan Hui Xian and Nicholas Chong. Nicholas has a slight advantage, but Hui Xian has actually struck twice, right? In frame 10. And Hui Xian does have a 10-pin advantage as a female bowler. So I think it might go the way of Tan Hui Xian, especially if Nicholas Chong doesn't strike out. Oh, pretty good technique. Pretty good fundamentals. Okay, strikes home. Oh, no, I mean, she gets a 9. Basically gets the job done. Oh, Benjamin doesn't strike on the first shot of the 10th frame. That's huge. So Uncle Rick can actually strike and shut out Benjamin there. So the first seed can get knocked out just like that. I believe if Nicholas doesn't strike on this shot, he actually loses. Lefty? Yeah, I think he's out. I think he's out. Because the best he can do is... Wait. I can't really see the score properly. He's currently at 180 in the 9th frame. I can't really see the score properly here. Oh, Uncle Rick strikes on the first shot of the 10th frame. So I think he shuts out Benjamin Ang there. And that's actually a big upset. Oh, doesn't even make the spare. So Benjamin gets, first seed gets knocked out by the 16th seed, which is amazing, right? Uncle Rick Tan qualified as the 16th seed and knocks out the first seed, Benjamin Ang. Woo, drama. Wait, does Nicholas go through? I think he does. If I'm not wrong, I think for Tan Hui Xian, I think it's at 180, right? So I think if Nicholas strikes here, he gets 200. So if he gets 200, then he actually beats Hui Xian. Because Hui Xian with a 10-pin handicap only gets 190. Yeah, that's 199. So I think Nicholas proceeds. Yep. So I think in this case, Nicholas proceeds. I can't really see Hui Xian score properly. So Nicholas proceeds, Uncle Rick Tan proceeds. And I think the semi-final should be Hairan Awang versus Rick Tan, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so they've turned off the camera for that. Knockout matches progress so quickly. I think Muhammad Daniel versus Russell. Okay, they're moving to which lanes? So I think it should be listed here, right? Is it listed here? No. Let's listen to the announcements. Okay. So we see Muhammad Daniel moving to lanes 3 and 4. I think Muhammad Daniel versus Russell. And I think So Yong Ping. Wait, So Yong Ping. Should be. Top 16. Oh, sorry, we are just in the quarterfinals now. Because earlier it was top 16 elimination, and now we're in the quarterfinals. So there's still 8 bowlers left. It's not the semi-finals yet. My bad. So we should get 8 bowlers going off against each other. So we have Russell versus Muhammad Daniel. Dylan.
Right now, we'd like to have the top 8 bowlers from the mixed graded division for quarter-finals to please proceed to your respective lanes.
So Marcus Leong versus Dylan Lim.
Bowlers, please.
So Yong Ping versus Hairan
on
Awang.
the TV monitor.
Kimberly actually proceeds. Okay, so Kimberly versus Rick Tan. So obviously Marcus, if for anyone who's not aware, is a coach for Agape. So actively coaching, a full-time coach at Agape Bowling Academy, and also an ex-national bowler himself. So if we were to talk about who's a favourite to win this tournament, obviously would be Marcus Leong. I think in the past, if we're looking at in the past, right, mixed graded rules and regulations don't allow ex-national bowlers actually to participate. But with the current modification,
once you're ready, you may commence with your 2 minutes practice throw.
Yeah, the 2 minutes practice throw. So with the current modification of the rules, I think the new rules for mixed graded just states that as long as you're not in the current national team, or you haven't been in the national team, I think for the last you've exited the national team for like past 3 years or something, and you haven't won like top 3 positions for a national title for the last 3 years, I think you can participate in mixed graded. So we can actually check the rules and regulations, I think, around here. So let's see, eligibility, classification, mixed graded. All male female bowlers have not been in the national program between 2018 to 2022. So in the last 4 years, have not been in top 3 final positions for any of the graded A open divisions between 2019 to 2022. So they will be able to play in mixed graded. So obviously, Marcus has not been in the national team since 2018, and hence he qualifies for the mixed graded event. So quite a strong field actually. No more no two-handers, so all the two-handers were actually eliminated. Earlier we have Lim Wei Yong, which was eliminated, and Benjamin Ang, who can play two-handed sometimes, was eliminated as well. So this is purely one-handed finals, one-handed quarterfinals, so to say. Strategy wise, I think for the right-handers, just like any of the other games that I've commented, this would be the ideal line for the right-hander. Playing between 3rd and 4th arrows, sending it to the break point roughly around board 10, board 11 to board 10.
Stop with practice now.
That would be the ideal line for a right-hander. For a left-hander, actually, such as Mr. Hairan Awang and also for Russell So, for Nicholas Chong, actually, Nicholas Chong is our lefty. Straighter, I would actually recommend a straighter line, like probably just straight down, maybe like 13, 12, 13 at the arrows, then maybe 12 at the break point.
Once again, a gentle reminder that slow bowling is strictly not allowed.
Something like that, 13, 12. So playing a tighter line straight down, or if their ball actually hits a little bit more, maybe like 11, 10, right?
High scores.
Crossing at 11 and then hitting like board 10 at the break point, 11, 10 down the left hand side. A tighter line for the lefties. So let's see if Nicholas actually plays that line. Okay, so Nicholas plays around the 10th to 11th board. So one of the recommended lines that I recommended there, a tighter line. So he actually sends it, I think, straight down 11 board if I'm not wrong. Marcus there actually goes for the deep right-handed line. I think he sends it a little bit out of to the right of the ideal break point, but his ball still manages to recover. I think he hit like board 10 to board 9 at the break point. Still manages to recover. Because these lanes are a little bit transition, because they have actually played since morning on these lanes for the master qualifiers. So there has been a little bit of carry down and transition, and the front part, especially the right hand side, is a little bit drier. So there is perhaps a little bit more room for error if the right-handed bowlers will play a little bit deeper. It depends on the lane, of course. It depends on who has bowled before in their lane, what lines they've bowled. Oh, Marcus sends it, way to the right as well. Misses the pocket. So in this pattern, because maybe I can bring up the pattern again. So let's close the rules and regulations. The finals are being played on pattern B, right? Yeah, I believe it should be pattern B. So let's bring up pattern B again. Right. So for pattern B, on the outside part of the oil, which is from boards 2 to 9, the oil is totally flat. So if you were to miss your break point, right? So let's say a break point is board 10. If you were to miss to like board 9 or board 8, there's actually no room for the ball to recover, because the oil is actually even there. Like, it's not drier at all to like boards 7 or 6. So you don't have the less oil as like you don't have the extra friction area for your hook ball to actually recover. So for like earlier, we see Marcus missing to the right and his ball totally didn't recover at all. Okay. So decent fundamentals from our left-handed bowler Nicholas here. Just maybe quick commentary on his form, right? Decent, but obviously not perfect. Like, knee bend is actually too straight, so there's not much in terms of his knee bend. Trailing leg angle is pretty good though, and his upper body slants well to the left. Bowling shoulder way lower than his non-bowling shoulder. So most of his form is actually good, just that the knee bend can be better, and also his balance arm isn't fully straight, isn't fully parallel with the ground as well. But most of his fundamentals are good. Like, his body leaning forward is actually pretty good. Okay, Mr. Hairan Awang takes a strike there. So Hairan Awang has a really unorthodox style. Obviously many of these mature bowlers, they are like, they didn't go through like any, maybe some of them went through a little bit of formal coaching. Most of them just figure out the game by themselves. And this game is, his game is actually, no, he is quite a mature age. So for his age, if you look at his game from the start, right, he has really good solid fundamentals. Like, his back is decently straight as well. During the approach, he actually stands very, very far for the approach. So Hairan himself is not a very tall dude. I think it's like 1.7 or something. So average height for a Singaporean male. but he's actually utilizing the maximum amount of the approach, which is actually not recommended. So most probably is that his first few steps are actually quite large. So let's take a look. Actually, it's not too big. Just that his third and fourth steps are decently big as well, and he actually doesn't slide as much. So most of his footwork are actually taking rather big steps actually. Taking rather big steps, and let's see whether he does have a good upper body forward lean. Not a lot upper body forward lean. And going into the final finishing position, obviously he falls off immediately. Obviously not a lot of knee bend, but maybe because at their advanced age, their knees might not be really strong enough to support their body, so they might take that away. But some of his fundamentals are still there, like his upper body leans to the left. A bowling shoulder is slightly lower than non-bowling shoulder, but not by too much. Like if you were to see from the stance here, actually their bowling shoulders are quite level. So this is how actually the more traditional bowlers like 20-30 years ago, they were actually taught to bowl this way, to have their shoulders actually very straight. So they actually don't create a lot of space with on the bowling side of their body. Still gets a strike for this shot. Okay, but in this case, So Yun-ping actually goes on an absolute tear, 5 strikes in a row, having a big lead over Hairan Awang here. And Kimberly Quack actually beat. Really, really good physical game. So, really good physical game here. Ooh, okay, so let's just take a look at her finishing position, right? When she releases a ball. Okay, so the only downside is that her balance arm isn't perfectly straight. But look at this upper body forward lean to the right, bowling shoulder lower than the non-bowling shoulder, excellent knee bend, trailing leg well extended as well. So most of her physical game is almost perfect. Only thing is that balance arm, and she's perfectly stable at the line as well. So not a lot of body leaning forward, which is okay for a one-hander, but the amount of body lean to the right is actually really good because it creates a lot of space for her ball to go through on the right side of her body. And earlier, if you look at her stance and her swing, so stance back straight, yep, body relatively straight in balance here, as ball on the, so ball held right in front of the right shoulder. And if you look at her backswing, I noticed that her backswing is very straight to target. So here, you can see that her target line is, I think, somewhere around here. For a female, she should be playing a rather tight line. So her backswing is relatively in line with the target line. Like it goes a little bit in, not by a lot. So the backswing direction is excellent. Excellent backswing direction. Then sends it out. I think hits a bit to the right of the target. Ooh, actually a ball hooks a lot for a female. And if you look at the rotation, let's take a look at the amount of rev she generate on the ball, right? See here. Right. So her fingers are around the middle part of the ball, which is good. So most female bowlers actually struggle with having getting their fingers even to the middle of the ball, let alone to the lower half of the ball. So her fingers are in the middle half of the ball, and she has a very explosive release. So if we were just to look at her release, yep, explosive and quick release. So as earlier mentioned, it was in the middle, at the release point, her fingers were in the middle half of the ball. So getting enough leverage on the ball, and you look at the amount of rotation, on the ball is quite decent, right? Quite a lot of rev rate, actually having that ball overhook. So, ooh, almost misses that spare. But excellent physical game from Kimberly Quack there. Uncle Rick Tan getting ready for frame 4. So Kimberly does have the lead there because she does have a 10-pin advantage. Rickon actually having a very unorthodox finishing position there, but still manages to get strike. Going back to the left side of the center. So Rickon finally doesn't strike, gets another strike again versus Hyron. So absolutely in the lead there, getting like ready for a 279. Right, Rickon's getting ready for 279 if he strikes well. Let's take a look at Coach Marcus' game, right? Because he's an ex-national bowler. I think his timing is actually on the earlier end, so I'm gonna pause the music here. Yep, so he does have actually early timing, or early ball placement timing, because at the point where he moves his right feet, he actually moves the bowling ball. So that's early ball placement timing. So I think his body system actually delays in the backswing in order to compensate. Yeah, around here. So if we were to pay close attention to his backswing has a little bit of a subtle delay. Like it hangs, like the bowling ball here, the bowling ball at the back, hangs in the air just for a tad bit. So again, so you see it hangs in the air just for a tad bit. So this hang in the air is actually sort of like artificially generated naturally by his body, because his body wants to delay the ball coming into his release point, because he wants to get a delayed timing upon release, which he does manage to do that. Because you see his slide stops here and his ball is just going right behind his sliding foot, right? So he does manage to get a slightly delayed timing upon release, and that is only possible when he delays his backswing by that slight pause in his backswing there. So we play the finishing position. So actually, Coach Marcus isn't very balanced at the finishing position. Let me check. I'm quite curious why. Okay, so first and foremost, knee bend is not really sufficient, because I don't know how actively Coach Marcus has been bowling, but knee bend is a little bit high. So upper body is well extended to the right side, but overly extended, right? Overly extended and too much upper body forward lean. So this actually makes him like lose a lot of balance, because he is Coach Marcus is a bit of a wider dude, right? So has a bit of width to his body shape. So his upper body is actually quite sizable, quite heavy as well. So with the amount of our upper body lean that he's doing here, his CG is actually close. I think his CG is about here. It's a little bit higher. So since he leans so much to the right, actually it tends to make him lose balance to the right. Balance arm position is still pretty good. And obviously trailing leg position, I think, is pretty good as well. So let's see, after he releases the shot, yeah, he immediately falls over. So you can see he's already falling over after he releases the shot, falling to the right here. Mostly because the leg here, but more because of his upper body forward lean. Like too much upper body lean to the right side and too much upper body lean to the forward direction. But other than that, obviously, very good physical game. Through years of drilling, through training since he was young, balance arm, still staying disciplined and parallel to the ground even when he's falling off balance. Yep. So I think this falling off to the right for his shots is a habit for Coach Marcus at this point. So I think if I seen him bowl like in previous videos, he tends to always do that fall off to the right most of the time. Right, manages to stay balanced for his spare shot. Oh, Russell getting a strike there. So the match against Muhammad Daniel and Russell, Nicholas there. Nicholas Chong against Muhammad Daniel is still close, I guess. Muhammad Daniel has the lead there, but it's not by a big lead. In this case, Dylan has a big lead against Coach Marcus Leong here. And Dylan should close it out as long as he keeps his last frame clean. Gets a corner spare. So if he spares that, I think he already shuts it out, right? He already shuts out Coach Marcus there. Match against for Kimberly and Rick Tan is quite close still because Kimberly didn't do that well. Like this shot is sending too far to the right. So in my opinion, I think Kimberly's ball is a little bit too aggressive for this condition because she's actually she's playing like the ideal line, but yet her ball is like overhooking and struggling to find the pocket. And then she's stuck in a very difficult situation with that particular ball because if she actually aims more to the right side, for the break point, her ball will never recover because it will hit a flat layer of oil on the right and then the ball will go straight. Oh, it's actually raining. Yeah, I gotta keep my clothes. Back. Yeah, good thing I'm actually not wearing my headset because at least I could hear the rain falling. Okay, so wow, So Ying actually narrowly beats Haron Awang. Narrowly beats Haron Awang. I thought So Ying would have wrapped that match up like in the early stages. Nicholas actually has a double. So he still can actually win this match against Muhammad Daniel if he strikes home. Because Daniel is going to end up with 207 if he strikes this. But Nicholas can end the game with a 210 if he strikes home. Yeah, so really important for Daniel there to get as many pins as he can. Is this best of 2 games? No, quarterfinal is only 1 game, right? Yeah, it's not 2 games. Yep. So I remember Dylan Lim actually beating Marcus Leong there. So Ping actually narrowly beats Haron Awang. And match between Kimberly and Rick Tan is still in contention. Oh, let's see what Uncle Rick does. Oh, middle pin, so it's a 9 count. And Kimberly is left with a difficult baby split. So if she opens this frame, let's see if she converts it. I think if she opens it, okay. So Uncle Rick may actually go all the way to the semifinals here. Ooh, so Uncle Rick has actually done an upset by upsetting first seed Benjamin Ang. And I think he might be going all the way to the semis actually by beating Kimberly Quack here. So Kimberly Quack with very confused performance. I think she's really confused about the lane reaction on this particular lane because the ball is like just hooking way too much for her, especially in the back end. She hits the ideal break point, but it hooks so much so that she either in my opinion now, I mean hindsight is 2020. I didn't see the result between Muhammad Daniel and Nicholas Chong. I'm thinking probably Daniel won that because if Nicholas Chong actually struck home, the only way Nicholas could have won that is if he struck home. But assuming that he didn't, then Daniel would have won that. Like for Kimberly's performance on this pair of lanes, now it's like, it's really weird because the ball like hooking too much. So in my opinion now, with hindsight with 2020, is that either she could have chosen a less aggressive ball at the start, like right after the practice shots, or even within like the first 2 frames, or she needed to move a lot deeper. And I'm correct, they're getting a cross bucket strike. Oh my god. I mean, it doesn't feel good for Kimberly, definitely, but yeah, I mean, she just wasn't matched up to this particular lane condition. So her ball really overreacted. So since she wasn't matched up, she was really struggling. Like her ball was overhooking, and then she couldn't send it to the right because if she sends it to the right, the ball would never recover. So that being like kind of difficult there. So going into the semis, I believe Funkerik has won this match. Yeah, basically it's a shutout with that strike. So I think the top 4 for the semi should be Angkarik Tan, Muhammad Daniel, Soyong Ping, as well as Dylan Lim. So the earlier favorite, which I mentioned, which is Marcus Leong, actually gets knocked out. So my predictions are totally off the mark, because when I looked at the scores, right, from here, obviously my obvious predictions were either Benjamin Ang or Marcus Leong, because with Marcus having the experience of a national bowler. But, well, knockout matches are like this, so they're pretty unpredictable. There's least to say. So Kimberly ends with another split. Yeah, she's really, like, I can tell, like, she rightfully should feel very frustrated about that her ball reaction, but she just isn't matched up with her equipment for this particular pair of lanes. My guess is that this particular pair of lanes, is the right side is a lot drier than what she was prepared for on the previous lanes, because all these lanes were bowled by the same bowlers beforehand during the first 8 games of the Masters, and then after the 8 games, they were also bowled once for the 9th game for the knockout, for the top 16 knockout. And Ankarik finishes with a 212, respectable 212, going into the quarterfinals.
Check.
Okay, so I think they'll switch off the camera for this one. Yeah, we'll probably...
Form is also open. You can scan the QR code on the screen, make your guesses. It will close once...
Right, so for anyone who's just tuning in, obviously the source for all these live streams are Singapore Bowling Federation, so please tune in to that as well. Give them a sub. If you like my channel, you can give my channel a sub as well if you like. Okay, so Muhammad Daniel did win that. So it will be Daniel versus Dylan Lim and Rick Tan versus Soyong Ping. So I think I'm gonna stop making any predictions. I mean, if I were to predict based on luck, I think Uncle Rick could actually win everything. Because Uncle Rick actually has really good luck with the amount of cross pocket strikes that I've seen. It just seems like the luck is in his favor today. So actually Uncle Rick was playing a really tight line. Something like this. But because he's playing such a tight line, as the lane dries up, right, his ball actually tends to overhook. Because if it was fresh oil, his ball would have stayed and then gone into the pocket like this. But because the front part is a little bit beaten up, right, so as it goes here, it will start to hook. So it starts to hook early, and then you will like transition to, or you will start to overhook going into the cross pocket. So I think Uncle can do a little bit of transition, like adjustment. He can move a little bit deeper by maybe 3 to 4 boards with his feet, and maybe like 1 to 2 boards at the arrows. Just go a little bit deeper, maintain the same break point, and he should be fine. So I think what Uncle is probably afraid of is if he shifts to the left, right, he's afraid of his ball not getting a solid pocket. Because if his ball gets a light pocket, there's a chance that he gets a 5-7 split. So maybe it's like mentally he might be like trying not to deal with that. So which is why he's like staying in his current location. Or maybe he's shifting, but maybe his adjustments have not been enough. Oh, so this practice shot is sent way too far to the right. Right. So the ideal line still for Uncle here will be somewhere like this. Playing in the middle, but sending to the break point probably around 13 to 15. That will be the break point for Uncle Tan. Because his ball doesn't have that it doesn't have that high ref rate and that drastic snap motion of the ball, right? So he doesn't need to send his ball so far to the right as to board 10. Probably like board 13 to board 15 at the break point is actually enough for him. This is all right-hander final, right? Yeah, no two-handers, all one-handers, all right-hander bowlers. Yeah, that shot actually lines up. The second shot from Uncle Rick there actually lines up a lot better. Let's see if Song Ping can find the pocket. Ooh, Song Ping doesn't. So I think he played something like this, which was quite an ideal line. I'm surprised that he doesn't find the pocket with that. Dylan finds the pocket there. So Dylan actually going with quite a lot of forward rotation in his release, which I think is really good for this kind of oiling condition whereby the back end is actually really strong. And you've seen like a lot of bowlers having trouble, especially earlier if you watch Kimberly Quack's ball reaction, like her ball would like hit the break point at like board 10 to 12, and then it would like snap and then dive straight into the headpin or go cross pocket. So that's when if you have a lot of forward rotation, you will actually mellow out and actually smooth out your backhand ball reaction a lot better. Yeah, Uncle is still struggling to find the pocket there because he's probably thinking to himself whether he should move left. So Yong Ping actually misses to the right with that practice shot. So he actually went here and it's a little bit too far to the right because it went like board 8, board 9 at the break point, and then the ball couldn't recover that far to the right. I think the furthest right the ball should go to the break point is just board 10. Any further right, the ball will be in danger of not recovering back to the headpin. So Yong Ping from Agape bowling here looks a little bit confused because like his shot execution actually is not that great for these few practice shots. We'll see how he does when he actually starts to bowl his first frame. He's been missing to the right, and then the last shot on that particular pair on the particular lane on lane 14, he missed to the left actually. So couldn't find the pocket in all 4 of his practice shots. Okay, so this camera is off. So if you're just tuning in, we're now into the semi-finals. Top 4 semi-finals, best of 2 games. I think best of 2 total games. Yeah. Livestream sources obviously from Singapore Bowling Federation. So you can actually head on over to their YouTube channel, Singapore Bowling Federation YouTube channel, and then you can check out their live stream there. I think Song Ping actually finds the pocket on this first shot. Yep. It confuses him, right? Because he actually gets a pretty good line here. I see his ball going through the 3rd and 4th arrow, ending at about probably like boards 10 to 12 at the break point, and the ball either rolls out. I think the ball could have like rolled out. It's not as if the ball didn't recover. The ball like went flat. So I'm thinking his ball actually rolled out instead of not hooking at all. So that might be what's confusing him. So in my opinion, I think he needs to go even further left to find fresh oil for his ball, because I think his ball could have been like staying too long in the friction area and actually rolling out of energy. I want to check the rules and regulations here. Check out the rules and regulations. Let's see. Format, gameplay, which refer to point 8 for the masters. Yep, so semi-final and finals is a bowler with the higher 2 games combined pinfalls to advance to the grand final. Yep, based on that combined pinfalls, yep. So we'll higher 2 game combined pinfalls, yeah. So pretty straightforward rules there. So the total of 2 games will decide who goes into the finals. Ooh, 7-10 split for Daniel there. That's rough. So the reason for 7-10 splits is usually in the case whereby your ball actually doesn't get into early enough. Since the match is not that crucial, maybe we can reverse a little bit. Let's look at Daniel's ball reaction. It looks decently good, but it seems like as it goes in, right? So as it hits the pocket, the reason for 7-10s is that when the ball doesn't get into a full rotation and doesn't accelerate fully, it's still what we say it's still in the hook phase, because the ball will go through what we call skip, a hook, and a roll phase. So it has to fully enter into a roll phase to maximize the energy when it strikes into the pocket. So what I think is that means for shots which result in the 7-10 split, right? My possible reasoning is that the ball is still hasn't fully entered into the roll phase. It's still somewhat in the hook phase for whatever reason. Maybe hit a patch of oil. It could be misexecution from the bowler, so having less ref rates than usual, and so on and so forth. Then the ball actually it hasn't entered into a full roll. So what it does is that when it hits the pins, right, because it's still in the roll phase, it's still in the hook phase, it will have a very weird pin reaction whereby you send pin 1 flying. So pin 1 will actually fly in front of pin 7, and the other pins, right, like pin 4 will actually go behind of that means it will go beside pin 7 into the pit, and then they will leave pin 7 standing. And then as usual, the pin 3 actually also goes in front of pin 10 into the pit, and then that leaves pin 10 standing. And the pins here is pin 6 also gets sent back into the pit, like to the left of pin 10, so missing pin 10 as well. And then the end result is that because all these pins miss hitting pin 7 and 10, right, you get pin 7 and 10 actually standing. Yeah, so that is my theory there. Obviously, it's just a theory. We will need a lot of recorded video, a lot of case study to actually understand the full like how 7-10 occurs. But sometimes it's like freak reaction of the pins as well. But most of the time, I think the freak reaction of the pins, like how the pins fall very weirdly, is probably due to the fact whereby the ball didn't fully enter the roll phase. Still stuck between the hook phase, that means it skidded a little bit way too long. So Daniel actually has a second shot on this lane, so let's see what's the result again. This time it gets perfect strike. So I don't see much difference between the shot where he got a 7-10 and this particular shot as well. So sometimes it's really hard to figure out So my only guess is that maybe a little bit of a misexecution from Daniel there. The ball didn't fully rotate as much as he wanted it to, which is why it maybe went a little bit further. And oh, Uncle Rick missing a pin 10 spare. That's a rare miss from him. Oh, nice execution from Daniel there. Ooh, really nice shot. So if we were to rewind, let's see what line that Daniel is playing, right? It goes for more direct line. Right, so Daniel actually plays a more direct line because he does have higher ball speed. Actually close to the second arrow. I think he's playing maybe like 11-10. A really tight line. And then at the 10 at the break point, and then that's the ball hooked in the pocket. With the higher ball speed, Daniel seems to be able to navigate this condition quite well. Like, his ball seems to not be as sensitive to the lane transition, even though all these lanes have been bowled on before. He seems to be able to just keep playing that line and his ball can like skid down the lane. Pretty interesting. So that's the advantage of high ball speed there. So with high ball speed, the advantages are that your ball is not as sensitive to changes in the lane, in the oil and lane condition. And obviously with higher ball speed, you also have more power because you have more kinetic energy as it hits the pins, so the pins will fly further, right? Easier to get strikes with more power. Uncle Rick is obviously an interesting outlier, right? So among all the 4 finalists here, he's the one with the slowest ball speed, most mature age, slowest ball speed. But I think his score is still decent, right? Because remember, this is total of 2 games, so it's still early, really early stages. So if actually So Yong-ping struggles with ball reaction, Uncle Rick can absolutely overcome him. A really direct line there. Don't get the direction that he wants. My opinion is that So Yong-ping's ball might actually be burning up because it doesn't seem logical that his ball doesn't recover from there. So I think it might be burning up. I think in my opinion now, if I were to advise, I would ask him to try like a deeper line because that might actually give his ball more energy if he stays longer in the oil. Yep. So Daniel here, with his really tight line, is actually very low room for error. I don't see him missing much. Like, I didn't think he missed much on that particular shot. Yeah, so Uncle Rick very disappointed with himself. He missed to the right there. I think he missed like 1 or 2 arrows to the right. Probably like 1 ball to the right at the arrows, and then his ball sailed way out in the point. Way out to the like bot 10, bot 9 at the break point and never recovered. Sparing super important? Okay. Managed to get. I thought Daniel could have chopped his spare there. There was a risk of him chopping his spare there. Yep. So anyone who's tuning in, Livestream sources are Singapore Bowling Federation's YouTube channel. So please subscribe to their official YouTube channel. They have a lot of great content. I love it that they are live streaming almost all of their games so that we as spectators, me as a coach, I can actually learn a lot from analyzing what I see on the screen, and then as spectators, bowlers, they can see their friends and family in action, support them without being in the bowling alley itself. So needless to say, So Yong-ping's physical game is pretty decent. But I just want to quickly comment on his finishing position. Really good. So balance, oops, so let's go for, clear this, go for a thinner view, right? So balance arm almost parallel to the floor, excellent knee bend, right? Upper body lean towards the right, bowling shoulder lower than the non-bowling shoulder. His follow through goes above his head, which is great. Trailing leg kicks up a little bit because he has a little bit more aggressive movement with his downswing. So he actually kicks up his trailing leg in order to balance it. So excellent finishing position there, and he stays low even after releasing his shot. So only gets up well after his shot passes the middle of the lane. It's quite acceptable. So pretty good discipline there, staying balanced. Staying balanced and foul line. Go back to the live view. Yeah, Dylan seems to be really struggling with ball reaction. He gets right? No, he got a 9. 3 splits in 6 frames actually. Oof. Rough for Dylan. I haven't really studied his line. Daniel seems to be pretty safe now because Dylan is really struggling to score. Even struggling to get like clean frames. This pair is really crucial. Any further missed pairs from Dylan will just put him further behind. And he misses the spare just as I think about it. He looks down at his hand, maybe there was oil in his thumb, or maybe perspiration or sweat on his thumb. So it's really disappointing. 118 on 9 frame 9, that's really rough. So Daniel cruising at the end of game 1 here with like almost 100 pin lead. Going into game 2, at least an 80 pin lead for Daniel. Okay, maybe not 80 pin lead because he can end the game on 200. Yeah, at least a 60 plus 70 pin lead going to game 2 for Daniel there. Because this is, they will take the total of 2 games. Okay, Dylan finally gets a good shot. So I think he made an equipment change, did he? Because I didn't pay attention to what equipment he was using beforehand. But I wasn't sure whether he made a ball change. Daniel actually missed to the left there. Could only see that he missed to the left like halfway down the lane when the ball looked like it wasn't staying on line. But Danny's line is pretty tight. I think he's playing something like probably an 11-10, probably 11 at arrows, 10 at the break point. Or maybe 12-11, 12 at the arrows, 11 at the break points. Something really, really tight. Ooh, Daniel actually misses a pin 5 spare. That is weird. Dylan's still struggling, even with the last shot. Like that shot doesn't he wants to send it out, but he is struggling to send it out to the ideal break point, and his ball is actually kind of overbooking. But still, what I mentioned in the beginning of the first game, like Dylan's forward roll is actually good for this kind of lane conditions, this kind of oil patterns. Yep, and I'm really struggling with this pair of lanes, as seen during the practice games. Actually, during the practice games, Soyoung Ping was struggling even more, but he seems to have found it. Like he manages to get a strike, a double. Not sure if actually Soyoung Ping did equipment change, but I wonder if he did a line change. Let's take a look. Yeah, Dylan's still struggling to send it to the correct grid point. Still couldn't get a strike on the left lane. The left lane is giving Sung Bin a lot of problems. Okay, Rick, going first? Yes. Okay. Oh, I'm not sure what line Uncle Rick is playing. Ideally, it should be this line, right? Pretty tight line. I think he hits. Okay, he finally gets a strike. And he hits a line that I was thinking of. But I think that line is pretty inconsistent for Uncle Rick right now. I think he probably hits a line, but the ball sometimes overhooks and sometimes it stays. So that's probably what's giving him the splits, in my opinion. So I think the previous game ended with, I think Dylan like 130-ish, and Daniel probably ended the game like about close to 200. So Daniel at least has like a 60 pin lead. But with this split, okay, so Dylan isn't capitalizing on it. Yeah, Dylan's still struggling to find the pocket there. So I think the ideal move for Dylan would be to move further left, find more fresh oil, further left into the lane and send it to the same breakpoint, probably at like around 11 to 12 at the breakpoint. He still needs to keep his lines a little bit tight. Good try there from Daniel trying to convert that split. Yeah, and Yongping like getting truly confused there because I think he hit his ideal line. He sent it around here, the execution looks really good, but the ball just didn't hook. It just labored straight. So my opinion is that his ball is actually rolling out. Because when the ball rolls out, it's actually pretty difficult to see. Your ball will tend to not hook instead of like having that usual reaction of overhooking, right? So that is actually one of the signs that your ball is actually rolling out, because it actually rolls out and quits in the middle of the lane, fully utilizing its energy. That's why you don't see that change of direction. But I think Yongping has to move deeper in if he wants to get more strikes. But then again, he doesn't have to, right? That's a very, very good spare from Yongping there, converting that, we call that a washout, because the pin one was present. So Yongping will end up with at least a 20 pin. No, more than that. That's like a 40 pin lead going to game 2. Because they're still at the end of game 1. Ooh, but Daniel with another open frame. Actually, yeah, this is a really good chance for Dylan to overtake him. But unfortunately, Dylan didn't strike on the third frame. Oh, Yongping looking at his hands there. Seems like slipped out. Probably slipped out early from his thumb. So Dylan needs to convert that spare. Okay. So he converts it. So if Dylan can strike home, he actually has a really, really good chance of overtaking Daniel here, because Daniel with 2 open frames, leaving a lot of pinfalls on the table there for Dylan to take. Daniel with really good execution, but his line doesn't seem... I mean, I can't really read his ball reaction because his ball is going down so fast. But I'm stuck between wondering whether is his ball not reacting enough, or like whether does he need to change to a more aggressive ball, or maybe he needs to change to a less aggressive ball. Excellent spare there from Daniel. So Daniel does have an inside swing. His swing actually warps into his back, which is not ideal. It would be better if actually straightened the target. Same as Dylan as well. And whoa, Dylan just barely makes that pin 10 spare. Ouch. Ping actually looking at his thumb again. Maybe he needs to dry out his thumb, or he might need to put tape in his spare ball, because that's second time he is looking at his thumb on the right hand side, on the right lane. Like, it seems to have slipped out of his thumb. Daniel gets a strike here, so it's sticking with the same ball. So it's like, it's really, Daniel's reaction is really confusing me as well. I really don't know whether he should like change equipment or just stick with it. But at least he's finding the pocket. So since he's finding the pocket, I think his gut instinct is to just stay with it, because Dylan is still ahead in the match, and Dylan really isn't running right at all. Still struggling, so I think Dylan went a little bit deeper, but now he's struggling with the entry angle. So the problem with going deeper is that right now Dylan did go deeper, but because his technique involves a lot of forward rotation, so his actually entry angle is kind of shallow. So it's a bit shallow and like going straight into the pocket rather than at an angle like this. So which is why he's leaving like the corner pins, because his entry angle is actually not sufficient. So in order to get a better entry angle, he either has to change to a more aggressive ball, like something that goes further to the right and comes back at a sharper angle, or he has to change up his technique by a little bit, and him missing that easy spare there doesn't help him as well. So yeah, Daniel has chance to recover for this game. Okay, and Uncle makes the easy spare. Yep, and then they're striking again. So probably just an execution issue. Seems like nothing wrong with his equipment. So I think he knows it himself. Like, as long as he executes a good shot, hits his target, gets the rotation that he wants, he's gonna get a strike. So I'm being with good execution, but I think he's missing his breakpoint a little bit to the left there, because his ideal breakpoint should be a little bit more to the right, close to bot 10. So the earlier shot, I think he hit around bot 13 at the breakpoint. So missing the breakpoint there. But still an easy spare, makeable spare for Yong Ping there. Okay, Uncle Rick gets a strike. So the strikes for Uncle Rick, like if you look at Uncle Rick's pin 4, right? The pins doesn't really jump around a lot. They more like tumble to the left. That's because it doesn't have a lot of entry angle going to the pocket. So Uncle Rick's line is really direct and really shallow because it doesn't have that much of ball rotation. If I were to draw it on this lane, right? Uncle Rick's line is going like between 3rd and 4th arrow. His breakpoint is really close to the pocket, probably around bot like 14 to 15, and then his ball just hooks a little bit. So it doesn't get a lot of entry angle into the pocket, which is why the strikes are like kind of tumbling. The pins just tumble instead of like going for a very clean, instead of falling clean down. Part of it also has to do with the ref rate as well. Since he doesn't generate that much ref rate with his technique, the pins kind of fall down a little bit lazily rather than like with more urgency. Oh, I think Uncle Rick made a ball change. Is he using a different colored ball? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he made a ball change. Seems to me for a moment that I think he could be holding a different ball. Ooh. Yeah, Dylan really still struggling, and Daniel actually got that double, so I think Daniel is winning this quarterfinals. Because that is a very difficult split for Dylan to convert. Okay, so this is still a makeable spare for right-hander for Yongping. They're waiting for Dylan to move ahead with his attempted split conversion, which is really rough. Oh, good attempt. Good try. Oh, Guri actually uses his strike ball, go straight down. Wow, that works. I'm surprised most of us would actually advocate this kind of line for sparing. Then for sparing corner pin. Ooh, I think that overestimates the shot and actually leaves an open frame. Wow. Ideally, actually, I would imagine to convert that split, you take your strike ball, you play it straight down the lane, and then you let it hook into that so-called baby split there. Yeah, Daniel just closing out this game. I think he misses a little bit to the right. A little bit to the right to me. I think he hit maybe like board 8 at the break point, but still an makeable, quite not an easy spare, but a makeable spare. Ooh, actually the score actually looks pretty decent for Uncle because he doesn't have any open frames, while Yongping already has 2 open frames. So my earlier prediction was actually Big Tan to win everything because the luck with him today. Like his cross pockets have been striking and stuff like that, and hasn't been like getting any serious splits. Just right there from Yongping. So Yongping went even straighter, right? He went for even straighter. Even he projected his ball even closer to the pocket. Like the earliest strike from Yongping was something like this. He went even, he chose a deeper break point, like maybe board 13 at the break point, and his ball just went straight and managed to strike. Yep, so Daniel wraps up the match with that strike way ahead of Dylan there. Because at the end of the first game, I think Daniel already led Dylan by about 60 plus 70 pins. So now he's going to win second game again, so he has like more than 130 pin fall advantage over Dylan. And in the previous game, I think Yongping had a slight lead over Uncle Rick, maybe a 20-pin lead over Uncle Rick. So Uncle Rick Tan really needs to like step up strikes as in the last 4 frames to have any chance of catching Yongping. Ooh, and again Yongping with the weird ball reaction. Like I don't understand his ball reaction as well. Like, I just imagine his ball is rolling out. Like, it doesn't hook at all. So it's probably rolling out of energy and going flat. Tumbling way over, like end over end forward. Doesn't even touch the hip pin, even though his execution looks good. But in my opinion, probably Yongping has transitioned to a less aggressive ball. And he misses this. And Uncle Rick has a big advantage window, like big window to take advantage of here. if he just strikes like maybe a double or even a turkey, I think he wins this match overall. Yep, Daniel going into the finals. Again, Yung Ping strikes on the right lane, going with that very direct line. But it just makes me more confused to his reaction on the left lane. As into his ball reaction on the left lane, not his physical reaction. Oh, and Uncle Rick actually leaves this open. Okay. So two open frames. I mean, no, just one open frame here. Still ahead of Yung Ping at this stage, so I think the game is still close between the two in terms of overall pinfalls. Again, same pin, same reaction, same ball reaction. The same formation of pins left, like doesn't hit the head pin and leaves it with a washout. So previously Yung Ping actually missed this washout conversion. I don't know whether he can convert this time. Oh, Uncle Rick goes a little bit deeper actually. Yeah, he actually goes deeper. Oh, and he leaves a split for attempting that transition, attempting the change. He actually went deeper like this, and somehow the ball just goes into the head, dives into the head pin, more to the cross pocket instead of going to solid pocket. And he shakes his head at that, thinking that he probably shouldn't have made that change. But then, I mean, I would have done that change as well. Try to shift as well, and Yung Ping misses that conversion. Oh, so this is like a really low scoring quarterfinals here in lanes 13 and 14 between these two gentlemen. Like, it's like who can get a clean frame. It's still close because Uncle Rick now has a 30 pin advantage over So Yung Ping. And if the game progresses as it is, actually Uncle Rick goes into the finals. Because I think 30 pin advantage is enough to override the earlier, I think So Yung Ping had a 20 pin advantage at after game 1. Oh, wow! So that drop ball is a sure sign that there's perspiration on his thumb. Either that or his thumb hole is really so loose that he drops the ball in the middle, like in the midst of his backswing. Like you almost never see any bowler dropping their ball at this level of competition. So it has to be something wrong with that thumb hole. That is a very worrying sign. Really worrying sign for So Yung Ping. Wow, he still manages to get a strike. Kudos to his mental strength, man. That is excellent mental game. If it was me, I would have like panicked, man, after I dropped the ball like mid backswing there. Wow, his mental game is excellent there. Oh, and a difficult spare conversion for Uncle Rick. So Uncle Rick did go deeper, but the risk of him going deeper is that because he doesn't have the entry angle, so he went in between like 4th and 5th arrows there, and he tried to aim for the breakpoint, around the same breakpoint at around 13, 14 to 15, but because he doesn't have the ref rate and he doesn't have the entry angle, his ball actually went straight into the pocket, and which resulted in a lot of pins left on the left hand side. And with the pin 5 standing, is even worse as well. It becomes a split. He doesn't convert this down to the wire, there down to the wire in this two. Because Uncle Rick still has 140 at frame 4, while So Yun-ping with that strike is only at like maybe 110, depending on his result in the time frame. So if actually Yun-ping strikes home, there's a chance that he wins, but if he doesn't strike home, there's a chance Uncle Rick still wins even with that split and the open frame in frame 9. This is problem lane. Oh, it touches the hit pin. Yeah, lane 13 has been the problem lane for So Yun-ping all throughout this match, especially throughout game 2. Like he has left 2 washouts on his previous 2 shots on lane 13. Now at least it touches the hit pin. Leaves a single pin spare, which is still missable, still makeable or missable, either way. And let's see, if Uncle Rick strikes home, I think he wins this. He moves back to the right, moves back with his original line, strikes. So now he's shaking his head, wondering why he made that attempted shift to the inside. Like he's probably telling himself that if he didn't shift in those earlier like 2 to 3 frames, if he didn't shift to the left, then he would have had this match wrapped up or way earlier. But I mean, I would have made that change as well, because he would, like, the ball was like slightly overhooking right earlier for Uncle Rick Tan. So I would have made it shift into the left as well. I even mentioned like in the beginning of this game that I will probably do like a 4-bot shift with the feet and then 2-bot shift with the arrow. And I think Uncle Rick did a little bit too much of a move. Like he moved like probably 5 to 7 with his feet, because and maybe like 3 or even 4 bots at the arrows, because he went from playing between 3rd and 4th arrow to between 4th and 5th arrow. So that's like a good 4 to 5 bot shift at the arrows there. So maybe that shift was just a little bit too aggressive. Yeah, I think Uncle Rick's... Wait, who wins this game? I am not sure. I am not sure who wins this game. As in this 2-game series, because I think So Yun-ping actually wins it by a few pinfalls. I can't see the result on the screen there.
The results for the semi-finals are
Okay,
out. Please check. The top 2 bowlers who are advancing to the grand finals, please proceed to your respective place and get ready. And for the rest of the spectators, this is your last chance to make a guess who the champion of the mixed graded division will be. Once
So we're sticking with this camera.
The game officially
Okay, so
for
Yun-ping
the
actually
grand
wins
finals,
just
we will
by a
close
little
the
bit.
form. Got
So
guess
we
or
have
chance? No guess, no
Muhammad
chance.
Daniel versus So Yun-ping for the finals. I'm gonna take a look.
And of course, you have to be present at the end of it when we do the draw for this. Now we'd like to have the top two bowlers from the mixed graded divisions for grand finals to proceed to your respective lanes. Bowlers, please. Alright, once you're ready, you may begin with your practice throw with 2 throws per bowler per lane.
Okay, so I'll disable the volume here. So apologize to the viewers if you're listening, if you're hearing an echo, because I am actually rather than using my headset, I'm actually playing from a speaker. Maybe I should actually use my headset there. Give me a while. Okay, so switch over to a headset so that the audience actually doesn't hear the annoying echo that comes from my speakers. Hope this helps out. Hope this helps out the viewing experience. So practice game, so earlier as I noticed, Muhammad Daniel actually goes for really tight lines, something around this line. Yep, really close at that. Really close to the, I mean, tight as in there's not like this is the ideal line that most hook bowlers should be playing on this particular condition. Especially this late into the games, they should be playing close to 4th arrow. But Muhammad Daniel actually goes for a really direct line in that case. So same for Yong Ping as well. I think Yong Ping, okay, in this case he tries for a deeper line. Especially Yong Ping tries for this line. But that breakpoint was like to board 5. So it's too far to the right. So that wouldn't work. So ideally the breakpoint still has to stay between like boards 10 to boards 13 in my opinion. So breakpoint is where at the end here, where the ball exits the oil pattern, that's where we call the, usually what we call the breakpoint. So Yong Ping seems to have a little bit more shape to his shot as compared to Daniel. Both of them have a decently high ball speed, so ball speed isn't an issue for either of them. But in my opinion, I think Yong Ping usually plays a little bit of a deeper line as compared to Daniel. Daniel really plays quite direct up the lane. So Daniel's line is like something at like 12 or 13 at the arrows, and then probably 11 at the breakpoint. So Daniel is like playing a 12-11 line. I think Yong Ping is playing something like
once again, a gentle reminder
16, 17, I think 17 at the arrows. And he's aiming at probably like 13 at the breakpoint. So probably like 16, 13 line for Yong Ping. So for this finals, it is still a total of 2 games, total pinfalls from 2 games. So who wins game 1 really doesn't matter, but it's how many pins you win game 1 by that matters. So from the previous match, actually neither of these bowlers have like fantastic ball reaction, but Daniel seems to be finding the pocket a little bit more. There's still times where his ball overhooks. That's because of the line he plays has very little room for error. Yep, Yong Ping goes a little bit deeper, sort of like 13, 16 or 17 to 13. Probably like 17 at the arrows, then probably 13 at the breakpoint. And this lane actually looks to be performing really well for his shot. Because previously when he was on like lane, I think he was like lanes 13 and 14, like lane 13 totally didn't rear at all for Yongping, which is really confusing. So it could either be the lane topography or the oil transition on the lane, I'm totally not sure. I think it confuses both me and him as well. It probably confuses his coach as well. So the kind of secret to playing this oil pattern, if you have played in the mixed grader division or any of the this particular nationals for any division before, is that you actually need to have a lot more forward rotation on your bowling ball to navigate this oil pattern. Because if you have too much side rotation, right, what happens is that once your ball exits the pattern, it will make a hard turn to the left. Especially if you're using a more aggressive or like asymmetrical bowling ball. Then actually asymmetrical bowling ball might smoothen out the reaction a little bit better, because you might start the forward roll a little bit earlier, so you might see a better smoother reaction. But if you're using like something like a pearlized ball or like a ball which had a very aggressive backhand hook, then I've seen bowlers that hit the breakpoint as far as like board 10 and then having their ball like overhook straight into the cross pocket. So this is where if you have a lot more forward rotation in your release, that will actually help better, because your back end reaction will be a little bit more smooth and more controllable back end reaction. Yeah, pretty lucky cross pocket strike from Daniel there. So as I mentioned, Daniel is playing really tight line, something like 11-10 or maybe like 12-11. So he could like miss a little bit at the arrows. So if he miss like one board at the arrows, he will go cross pocket, right? Because the difference at the breakpoint will be like 2 to 3 board different at the breakpoint. Okay, nice spare from So Yongping there. Overall, in this entire Masters, so far from the top 16, So Yongping looks really solid. Both of them have really solid physical games. Nothing much to comment on. Daniel just have a little bit more deficiencies, like his knee bend isn't as good as Yongping's. But when it comes down to performance in the finals, like physical game, it is still important, but at least as long as you stay balanced at the foul line and you can hit your target consistently, like if you hit a target once out of every 5 shots, that's a problem, right? But as long as you can stay balanced at the foul line and you can nail your shots on a consistent basis, hit a target and have the reaction that you want, then how ugly a physical game looks like really doesn't matter. So I missed to the left, yeah, he did. So Yongping actually missed to the left on the breakpoint side. So he hit like, I think 15 at the breakpoint, and then he rode to cross pocket, having the same pin combination as Daniel there. Daniel makes that spare. So Yongping should do the same. So far I only seen one miss spare from both Daniel and Yongping, I think. So both of them have really good spare games, which is really important for a competitive bowler. Like I mentioned in one of my previous videos, if I were to train any competitive bowler, like 1 month close to the tournament itself, I would probably like give them hard training on like doing spares every training. Like to make sure that their spare rate goes up to at least like 90 to 95% for all the so-called easy makeable spares. Then maybe a little bit of training on split conversion as well, but like sparring is the key in terms of tournament preparation. Ooh, slaps it out. Yeah, that pin reaction isn't ideal. So Daniel's pin reaction is somewhat wonky actually, because I believe for Daniel's release, sometimes he doesn't get his full rotation on the shot. Because this is too early, maybe let's look at Daniel's release for a bit. There's a little bit of a loft here. So if you look at his release point, yeah, a little bit of a loft. Overall, I can't really make a read on Daniel's ball reaction. It's like, it seems a little bit inconsistent. Could be due to his ball choice as well. But he doesn't have as smooth a reaction as probably Yongping or like some of the other national or youth bowlers. And really at the end, when his ball hits the pins, there's somewhat of a wonky pin action. Like sometimes the pins just jump up instead of like going down smoothly. Yeah, then he has that bit of a loft. Manages to get a strike. A little bit of a late release, I guess, because of that loft. Like the loft usually signals something, so probably it signals a late release. Which is probably okay if the lanes were a little bit drier. Like I would feel like a late release with a loft would probably be not as good on a very long pattern. So Yongping's release is a lot smoother. I can't really see it on this angle because Daniel was blocking. Maybe you can see again on another angle. But just by hearing to the sound, right, of when his ball hits a lane, you can see that Yongping's when his ball hits a lane, it sounds a lot softer. So it shows that his release is a lot smoother, a lot earlier. Good spare there. So nobody's running away in this first match. So still pretty close and tight. It looks like this will be a pretty tightly contested finals. Hopefully there's no like terrible splits that occur in game 2. But anyway, we're still in the midst of game 1 here. Oh, falls to the right again. So Daniel has a tendency to fall to the right. Let's take a look at his physical game, right? So like I mentioned before, actually Daniel's knee bend isn't ideal, which can be seen here. So his knee bend could be better. Then he kicks up his right leg because he does move a little bit more aggressively with his, with his downswing. And the interesting thing is that actually Daniel does this motion. Like his follow through isn't in front of his head, but to the right of his head. So he kind of flips his hand to the right. So this also adds to him losing balance because as you can see, ideally our upper body should always lean to the right, right? So not only does his upper body lean to the right, which is ideally correct, so this is very correct, but because his right hand finishes to the right of his head again, to his right of his head as well, so it adds even more weight on the right side of his body. So it adds more weight here, and it tends to make it easier for him to lose balance. So otherwise, balance arm is actually decently positioned. Obviously not. The ideal one would be parallel to the floor, but it's still actually quite good. Yep. So Yongping misses this pair, but if we compare to Yongping's release, So you can see here, Yongping's release actually finishes his hand follow through almost in front of his right eye, right? So this is actually what we are looking at instead, because we rather have the hand follow through in front of the head, but in front of the eye, so that you are still in line with hitting your target. Your follow through is in line with your target line, rather than like Daniel's form, which is Daniel finishes with his hand like over on this side, right? He finishes his hand like something like extends here and here for Daniel. So it adds a lot more weight to the right hand side, and since it's not in line with the target, there's a lot more compensation involved. And if on a certain day, if your physical game is not like maybe if you lack some rest, or maybe if you feel stressed, so if you don't do the correct compensations with your body, you can miss your target entirely. Like there's a chance that you can miss your target to the right, because your follow through is always going to the right of your target. Yep, so good spare from Daniel there. So we can take a look at Daniel's follow through here. So actually on release, it looks pretty good, right? So on release, Daniel actually follows through right in front of his head. Just that he shifts, so his follow through motion actually shifts his hand to the right after he releases the shot. So which is generally still okay, because his immediate release is still going for his immediate release follow through is still going in front of his head, and then only after his hand hits the top part of the follow through, and then when he lets his hand down, then it ends up to the right hand side of his body. So in hindsight now, it's actually quite okay. But if you look at his hand, it's kind of an interesting release where his hand opens up. Instead of like having his palm facing the target, his palm actually faces this direction. It faces like 9 o'clock instead of facing like towards the target at like 11 or 12 o'clock. Because normally we would like to see the palm like facing forward towards the target, which is towards the pins. But in Daniel's case, actually he opens up his wrist there. Pretty interesting release. Can't really say whether it's good or bad. I think it's quite subtle. So Daniel might be doing that sort of release maybe to try and generate a little bit more side rotation in his release to make his ball skid further down the lane, which is still okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, because there are certain conditions and certain times where you want your ball to skid further down to conserve a little bit more energy. Okay, so first match coming to an end, and Daniel ends up with a sizable lead actually. So if he strikes home here, it will actually be 210. Oh, he misses to the right. Ooh, difficult split there. So I think he ends the game at about 180-ish. And Yongping actually gets a strike in the 9th frame. So Yongping can end the game at about 170-ish to reduce the deficit to like 10 pins. Yep, now making that split conversion. So obviously to hit that split conversion, you have to like aim on the left side of the pin and try to brush that pin slightly and then try to swing that pin over to the right. Difficult. So you gotta aim at pin 7 there. You gotta, to make that pin conversion, you gotta imagine that you're aiming at pin 7 and then throwing the ball towards the pin 7 line. And hoping that your ball actually brushes up against that. It was pin 3. Because if you are going for a pin 7 spare, right? So here, then you hope that your ball will brush against pin 3 and then to send pin 3 into pin 10. Also, Daniel still ends the game with 190. So my math is bad there. Still a pretty sizable lead. So Yongping ends this game with 173 at best. So that's like a 17 pin lead for Daniel going to game 2. And for this finals, as well as just now earlier the semi-finals, it is a total of total pinfalls from 2 games to decide who gets the champion. Pretty good shot there for Yong Ping. Yep. So 17 pin lead for Daniel going into game 2. That's right, I think Daniel moved a little bit deeper. Because earlier Daniel was like playing a really tight line, but with that earlier strike, it seems to like still stay in the same area, but send his ball a little bit to the right at the breakpoint. Like rather than bot 11 or bot 12 at the breakpoint, now he seems to be going like bot 10 to bot 9 at the breakpoint instead. Which is actually a pretty dangerous line to play. Because that part of the lane, like once it goes beyond bot 9, there's like no room for allowance at all outside of bot 9, because the OI is actually totally flat on the right side of bot 10. So like this area of the lane is totally flat OI. The OI is, there's no difference in the OI at all. So if you miss at all in this part of the lane, like if you miss to the right, your ball will stay to the right. If you miss to the left, your ball will just overhook. Like there's no extra oil to help the bowler there. Typically, I think in the house pattern, what helps the bowler is that on the outside part of the breakpoint, right? Like in this part, in the last 5 bots, it is essentially very, very dry. So there's very little oil on the outside. So it makes it that for a house bowler, if they actually miss their ball and they send it to the right there, like the bots 5 and so on, the lack of oil will create a lot of friction, and that will make their ball like create a big hook so that they will still have the head pin. But in this kind of spot oiling, because there's no allowance at all, the oil is flat on the outside part of the lane. Like in this case, the outside 9 bots is totally flat. If Daniel misses to the right at all, he has no room, his ball will not be coming back. So yeah, I think he hits his line like pretty perfectly. He's going for like bot 9 at the breakpoint. I think he's sending it around bot 11 or 10 at the arrows, and then sending it out to bot 9 at the breakpoint. Very tight line again, very little room for error. Yong Ping misses to the left. Ooh, and his ball actually stayed. So I would have guessed that Yong Ping played like, because earlier I think he missed to the left there. Originally he was playing between 3rd and 4th arrow, but this one he was hitting close to like 19 bot instead of like bot 18 where his original target was. So probably missed 1 bot to the left, but his ball actually stayed in the oil and still struck. And I think Yong Ping made a ball change. Look at his next shot. So Daniel had been staying in the same ball throughout, I think the whole knockout stage. So he's been using that black and yellow ball throughout. We come, okay, thoughts. How would I train? Okay, so I'll answer the second question first. How would I train spares without pin setting? Just imagine. So let's say you want to train this corner pin, right? So you have all the pins there. So you just gotta imagine your line. Like for example, if this is your line to spare, and then try your best to make consecutive spares on that particular pin 7. So let's say you hit like 10 times of pin 7, and then you can proceed to your next challenge, which is like maybe 10 times of pin 10, and then you have a full rack, and then you just use every single frame to just hit on pin 10. So ignore the score and just focus on your spares in that way. So this is how I train my spares when like I'm doing my normal bowling. I just ignore the scores and I just go for that particular pin all the time. So if I'm training like this combination, I'm trying to spare like the last what's this combination? This is the 1, 2, 3 3, 6, 10, right? And then I will just try on every shot to go down this line and try to get that 3, 6, 10. Chance for these both particular bowlers, actually honestly is quite even, but I mean, Daniel actually had like a 17 pin lead going from game 1, so looks like he still is holding on to the lead because he has like 3 strikes and an easy pin 10 spare. I haven't seen Daniel miss any of his spares. I think he missed 1 single spare in the knockout stage. So he's obviously a good spare shooter, so it should be no problem for him. Yeah, Yongping is playing deeper into the lanes. So I think Yongping actually shifted left, which is understandable because he wants to find more fresh oil. And I also think Yongping made a ball change as well because I don't believe he was using this ball earlier in his match versus Untitled. Ooh, almost didn't make that spare. Okay, no problem. So, I mean, when it comes down to really like a knockout game, is really hard to predict because it's really every shot matters, right? Whether you get a split, whether you get a spare, every single shot matters. It's just hard to like look at the form of both bowlers. Because the important thing is that both bowlers actually have pretty good ball reaction. Like if you look at Daniel's shot, he's been finding the pocket every single shot. It's just a question of whether he strikes or whether he leaves a pin 10. But actually for Yongping, yeah, look at the shot. It looks pretty good as well, right? His ball stays with this particular new ball that he changed to. So his ball stays on the line and he manages to gets the carry, gets to the pocket. So both bowlers have been getting the pocket without problems. So ball reaction wise, they are both equally good. So it's really like a question of luck, down to a luck of the carry, I guess. And also spare shooting as well. Because eventually they're bound to leave spares like this. So whoever misses first, obviously would like give up like a 20 pin lead to the opponent. So which is why spare shooting is really make or break for tournaments. Whether is it qualifiers or step ladders, your sparing really makes or break your tournament chances. Looks good. I think he makes this. Yep, makes this. Loses balance, but as soon as he releases the shot, you saw that his ball was going in the correct direction, heading towards the pins. So he makes that without problem. Without problems. So obviously Yongping can still come back from that, I think 17 pin deficit if he strikes home. But I mean, anyway, Daniel can also actually strike home. But Yongping has a double here. Oh, I think he hits line perfectly. Yeah, perfect. That was perfect execution because what Yongping was going for now, his line is something like this: 19 at the arrows, and I believe probably like 15 or 14 at the breakpoint. So it's playing on the inside line, further inside than Daniel obviously, but still pretty tight. But he earlier he hit the shot perfectly, right? Daniel also hit the shot perfectly. Yep. So you could actually hear from the background audience like somebody said nice, right? Yeah. So that was like you can see that Daniel hit his target perfectly. So for Daniel, he's going around like probably 10-9 or 11-9, probably like 10 or 11 board at the arrows, going for the breakpoint at close to 9 board on the outside line like this. So that's Daniel line. So both bowlers playing slightly different lines, and I don't think any of their lines will cross each other because Yongping is playing on the inside of Daniel's line. So none of their lines will cross each other. They will not interfere. Oh. I don't know whether he missed to the left there. Maybe he did. I'm not entirely sure. But that is huge. Because Yongping was already behind. So if actually Daniel nails this with, like, even if he doesn't strike, as long as he closes his frame, he'll be super ahead. Oh, I think he misses to the left. Yep. Daniel misses to the left, but his ball actually stayed. Because earlier Daniel was playing a more outside line, but this particular shot he threw something like this instead. So he missed parallel to the left, but somehow his ball stayed in the oil and he still manages to get a strike. Backswing of Daniel, yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's ideal because I think, if I remember correctly, he actually swings to the inside. So we can see here, yeah, this is actually really not ideal because he swings to the inside instead of straight to the target, because his target is obviously here, right? So you can see that he's actually backswing and his target line is actually not aligned at all. But he has a lot of compensation that actually makes it work. Let's see the result of this shot. Yeah, he strikes again. So it's really impressive that despite some like inefficiencies in Daniel's physical game, right, he manages to be a really accurate and consistent bowler. Because I've seen Daniel like performing even years before this, like under coach Michael Lee. I think he was bowling the youth divisions in the national championships and Singapore Open since like 5 years ago, and he has been performing at a very high level even back then. So even though his backswing isn't ideal, he's been doing really well, right? He still manages to hit his target. And he hits his target at a very high consistency as well. Yeah, so I mean, obviously physical game, as much as I harp on physical game on my channel, it is obviously important because when it, like in pressure situations, or if your body isn't performing as it should be, if you have certain bad habits in the physical game, then you affect the accuracy and consistency of the bowler. But then again, if you look at a lot of professional bowlers in the United States, in the US and so on, they also don't have ideal physical games. They have like weird backswings and so on, but they are still able to perform, mostly because they are very strong mentally, because they're very used to bowling at a very high pressure situation. They have spent years bowling competitively. So they have trained their mental game such that they can get their body to perform to the peak performance even in very high pressure situations. But then again, what is high pressure for somebody would depends, right? Because to them, bowling for like $10,000 is the norm, because they bowl for $10,000 championship, like first place $10,000 every single week. But if it's like a $1 million shot, right, or like a Masters on the line, then they will put extra pressure on them, and that will maybe crumble their physical game, and that will crumble their mental game, and that's where they make mistakes. So, like, what is high pressure? It really depends. So the more experienced the bowler, the more they can overcome deficiencies in their physical game. But there will come a stage whereby the pressure of the situation would be too much. So obviously the one with the better physical game always has a better chance of performing in a high pressure situation. And Yong Ping misses that spare. So I think this wraps it up. So Daniel runs away with the competition. Congratulations to Muhammad Daniel there. And let me get his name correct. Muhammad Daniel bin Rosli. Congrats on him winning the mixed graded Masters. Yeah, ends the game with a strike on the 10th frame. So thank you guys for watching. So as usual, a plug for myself as well. I'm a bowling coach and I'm coaching actively as well. So if anybody is looking for bowling coaching, looking to improve their game, whether it's a beginner bowler or as a competitive bowler, you can find my contact information in the video description. Livestream sources are from the Singapore Bowling Federation YouTube channel. Please give them a sub. And I have 538 subs right now. Surprisingly low number of subs for the amount of content they provide. So please give Singapore Bowling a sub. And if you like my content, you can also sub to my channel as well. So thank you guys for watching. So after this last shot from Daniel, I think they will probably end, Singapore Bowling will probably end the live stream there. Yeah, Yong Ping actually played really good as well. So I think Yung Ping actually survived a scare by Hairon Awang there. Because he
Alright,
actually
and
had
the
a really good
champion
start.
for 52nd Singapore Nationals Mixed Graded Division goes to Muhammad Daniel bin Rosli. Thank you everyone for your support both online and on-site. We shall now proceed with the prize presentation near the projector screen. Thank you.
Okay, so as is the official announcement there, so Muhammad Daniel is our champion. And thank you guys for watching. We will see you guys next time. End the live stream here. If you have any further questions, feel free to post in the comments for the VOD, like for the after the video is like uploaded into the channel as a bot, and then I'll answer them when I see them. Thank you and